Good afternoon and welcome to yet another broadcast, somewhat earlier than I had planned to inflict my opinions on you all again, but it being a somewhat quiet Sunday, I thought I would put my tuppence worth, post the tuppence worth up in this video. And of course, I am not going to be talking this morning or this afternoon rather, about the fact that we don't have an interest in the ownership of a stadium. I'm not going to even talk about the Interbet website, which is not up and running. And surprisingly, I'm not going to talk about Rob Sant's resignation as a director of Newport County Football Club. And I say that not because I don't think it's important. I mean, clearly it's important. But Rob hasn't as yet given his reasons for resigning. And I don't want to put words into his mouth or to make any comment as to the reasons why he has chosen to do so. However, I do think that the news that he has done so has brought matters pretty much to a head. And since the news broke at about 9:15 this morning, the message board has been about post once every 4 minutes has been going up, which for a club the size of Newport County is quite phenomenal. And oddly enough, with the one exception of who are you or where are you, the usual crowd who, shall we say, don't take or share my worldview or my view on Newport County seem conspicuous in their absence. Perhaps they've all been banned from the message board, who knows? But what I am going to deal with is a point raised by one contributor, and that is the trust ownership. And his belief, I think County at the Race's belief, is that the trust ownership model has not worked. And I would agree with him, but I don't agree necessarily that the trust, well, not necessarily, I don't agree fundamentally with his view that the trust model can't work. So let me set out what I actually think is the case for both sides, and then I'll tell you why I come down very, very strongly on the one side. Now, most football clubs, as we know, certainly professional football clubs, tend to be owned by either a small group of people or a company or a single individual. And that's the normal way that clubs are run. And as we know, it was the way that Newport County were run up until 1987, 1988, 1989. We all know what happened then. And it was the way that Newport County were run at some point after we saved the club or reformed the club back in the late 1980s. The club was taken over, I don't know exactly when, by business people who ran it. And we know that 3 years ago, once again, the supporters had to step in to save the club. Now, if a club is privately owned, it is a matter for the owner how much information they divulge about the club. Some will divulge a lot, some will divulge a little. But to my way of thinking, there are three ways that a private individual or individuals can own a club. Now, the first type are people who genuinely love the club and are prepared to plough hundreds of thousands of pounds into the club. I don't think they actually really exist. I know we keep on hearing, oh, we need people to invest in the club. Well, people only invest in anything if they think they're going to make something from it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that somewhere along the line there hasn't been somebody so enamored with a football club that they've put vast amounts of wealth in that club for no return. I don't think that really happens. The second way that a club which is owned by a private individual or company can be run is, of course, as a business. Now, that is the model that can work. It's not the model I favour, but it can work. And basically, it works like this. An individual says, yes, I will invest £100,000, £1 million, £20 million, whatever, in a football club. I will develop that football club. I will run it on a sound economic basis, and I will make a profit from it. I will make a profit because more people will watch that club, more people will buy the merchandise. I make a profit, but the club is more successful. And that strikes me as the model. If you're looking for investors, that's the model that you have to employ. Who, looking at Newport County at the moment, what sane business individual would come in and say, Newport County looked like a club that I could really organise, make into something that makes money, and the club could be successful, and I could be successful as well. I would suggest that is extremely unlikely. Now, there's a third type of individual, the Oyston family. Being one such, well, family, not individual, but you get my point. And they're there purely to asset strip. And people will say, well, County is safe from that because they don't have any assets. Yes, they do. They do. The money that comes from the Football League each year, I think £700,000, pools money, if that's still coming in, various grants, and the 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 people who all hand over 15, 20, 30 pounds of a Saturday or a Tuesday night to watch Newport County. They're an asset. There's a massive amount of money flowing around in a football club. And there are people who are quite willing to promise you the earth, take that money from you, and then disappear. To me, it is this third type of owner, if we were to go into private ownership, that Newport County would attract. Those that smell blood and are going to feed on the carcass. And for that reason, I am very much against the private ownership of Newport County. Although, as I say, an argument can be made if you can find either the purely altruistic individual or company or the pragmatic individual or company, the model can and does work. As I say, I think we are really prime targets for the third type of owner if we went into private ownership. So moving on, let's have a look at the trust model. Now, County at the Races just says, well, the model has failed. Well, he's right. He is absolutely right on that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the trust model can't work. But what it means is that the trust model isn't working. And we have to ask ourselves, why isn't it working? What has been the, why has it not been successful? Well, let's be quite clear about this. Those who have been at the forefront of the trust since the Football Trust took over have always said, we're going to communicate with the supporters, we're going to tell you what's what, we're going to be open as far as we can be. And candidly, in the 3-4 years now that we've been a fans-owned club, they have not communicated. I suppose if you then examine the the position the club is now in, I certainly fail to understand how, in addition, we're far from being the worst supported club in League Two. We have received massive amounts of income from transfer fees and sell-on fees in the case of Connor Washington, and there was a massive influx of money from the last season's cup run, money that we could not have budgeted for, and yet it now appears that the club are saying, well, we're not telling you what's going on, and yes, 3 of the directors have resigned, but we're still not going to tell you what's going on. And we've had David Hando, I think somewhat sadly, writing a letter to the Argus asking for supporters to trust members to pay £10 a month, so £120 a year as opposed to £10. Why would anybody do that? Why would any right-thinking person plough money into this black hole where it just seems to disappear? If we can't handle the finances of, if the monies from the FA Cup and the transfers have disappeared as quickly as they appear to have done, what good is a few hundred supporters giving £100? Yes, it'll be a few more £1,000, tens of thousands of pounds possibly. Used correctly, it might do some good, but there's precious little evidence, is there, that monies going into Newport County have ever been used constructively and well. If the club was successful in being financially successful, I suppose the argument that is put out by the directors or some of the directors of Newport County Football Club that we need to keep things from you because of they're economically delicate might hold some weight, but that's clearly not the case. Somebody, I forget who it was, my apologies to whoever it was, made an interesting post this morning saying, well, it's about time they told, the directors of the club told us, the fans and the owners, what was going on before it was too late and the club were totally screwed. Very good point. My fear, and I have to be candid about this, is that it is, in my view, that it is too late, and it has been too late for quite some time. As for the 2 directors who seem to be, along with the co-opted, who we know little about, but as with respect to Sean Johnson and Gavin Foxall, they have led the trust. I don't doubt their integrity. I've never doubted that. I don't doubt that they've done their very best, and they should be thanked for that. However, to both these gentlemen, I would say this: you can't run a football club. Candidly, you couldn't run a bath. You are useless. You have your arrogance and your contempt of the supporters and owners of Newport County is beyond belief. As I say, I don't doubt your integrity, but I would ask you, if you have any vestige of pride left, apologise and go now. That is my view. Others, of course, are entitled to take a different view. That's all. I hope that you have a quiet and peaceful Sunday. Bye for now.